The stench of diesel still clung to my nostrils. Even after all these years, it brought back that night. I swore I'd leave it on the road, buried beneath miles of asphalt and swallowed by the vast emptiness of the American West. But some things, some nights, refuse to stay buried. They claw their way back, fueled by the darkness, whispering through the gears of memory. The road, once my sanctuary, became a desolate stage for something sinister. It was a night like any other, or so I thought. I was hauling a load of electronics, a sea of screens destined to illuminate other lives. The open road had always held a certain allure for me. The freedom, the solitude, the endless horizon promising untold adventures. The growl of the engine was a lullaby, the rhythm of the tires on asphalt, a steady heartbeat in the silence of the cab. But that night, the silence felt different. It was heavy, pregnant with an unspoken threat. The air itself crackled with an unseen energy, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. The highway unfurled before me like a dark ribbon, swallowed by the inky blackness beyond the reach of my headlights. The radio, usually my constant companion, crackled with static, the voices of distant DJs dissolving into a chorus of ghostly murmurs. I tried different stations, hoping for a familiar tune, a human voice to break the oppressive silence. But it was no use. The static persisted, a constant reminder of my isolation. Outside, the landscape was a blur of darkness, the occasional flickering sign a beacon of civilization in a sea of emptiness. The miles seemed to stretch on forever, each one pushing me deeper into the heart of the unknown. I felt a chill run down my spine, despite the warmth of the heater. It was then I noticed the truck. It was parked on the shoulder, its headlights off, swallowed by the shadows. Something about that silent, shadowy truck whispered of danger. I kept my eyes peeled on my rearview mirror, half expecting the truck to roar to life and fall in behind me. But it remained stationary, a dark monolith against the moonless sky. Its presence, though, lingered in my mind, casting a pall over the journey. Every now and then, I'd glance at the mirror expecting it to be gone, vanished into thin air. But it never was. It stayed rooted in that spot, a silent sentinel in the vast emptiness. I tried to distract myself, fiddling with the radio, checking the maps, anything to shake off the unease that had taken root in my gut. There was something deeply unsettling about that abandoned truck. Just as I managed to convince myself it was just my paranoia playing tricks on me, I saw it again. The same truck, parked further down the highway. This time, though, it was closer to the road, its hulking form illuminated by my headlights for a fleeting moment. My blood ran cold. There was no way I had simply overlooked it before. The highway was desolate. There were no exits, no turnoffs, no way it could have overtaken me unseen. It was as if it had materialized out of thin air, appearing and disappearing at will. My pulse quickened, a cold sweat prickling my skin. The silence in the cab suddenly felt oppressive, suffocating. Fear, primal and instinctive, began to worm its way into my gut. I pressed down on the accelerator, desperate to put as much distance as possible between my rig and that phantom truck. The engine roared in response, the truck surging forward like a beast startled from slumber. But no matter how fast I drove, the unsettling feeling of dread clung to me like a second skin. It was then I heard it, a faint sound, barely audible above the drone of the engine and the rush of wind against the truck's cabin. It was a low, mournful cry, filled with despair and something else, something that sent chills down my spine. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my heart pounding in my chest. It couldn't be. It sounded like like a human voice. But it was impossible. We were miles from civilization, surrounded by nothing but darkness and the endless expanse of the road. The cry pierced through the drone of the engine, through the static of the radio, sending a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the chill of the night. It was a primal sound, filled with a raw terror that resonated deep within me. I instinctively glanced at the CB radio, a glimmer of hope flickering in the back of my mind. Maybe, just maybe, it was another trucker in distress, their voice distorted by interference and the vast emptiness that separated us. I reached out, my fingers hovering over the transmit button. But I hesitated. What if it wasn't a fellow traveler? What if that cry, so filled with despair, belonged to something else? The static seemed to crackle louder, as if mocking my apprehension. Logic warred with fear. The sensible part of me, the seasoned trucker who had seen his fair share of strange occurrences on the road, urged me to keep driving, to chalk it up to coyotes howling in the distance or some nocturnal bird with a particularly mournful call. But deep down, a primal instinct whispered a warning. The hair on the back of my neck prickled with a chilling awareness that this was something different, something sinister that lurked just beyond the reach of my headlights. The cry echoed in my mind, a chilling reminder that I was not alone in this desolate stretch of darkness. I had to make a choice. My hand trembled as I reached for my cell phone, its cold metal a stark contrast to the clammy sweat that clung to my palm. I flipped it open, the dim glow of the screen doing little to pierce the oppressive darkness of the cab. No signal. Of course, out here in the middle of nowhere, civilization might as well have been a million miles away. Panic welled up inside me, tightening its grip around my chest. I felt a surge of desperate hope as I thought of the truck stop just a few miles back. Maybe, just maybe, I could make it back there, find a working phone, call for help. But the memory of the phantom truck, appearing and disappearing with unsettling ease, doused that hope as quickly as it had ignited. And then, as if conjured by my fear, the CB radio crackled to life. The static, which moments before had been an impenetrable wall of noise, parted, replaced by a voice that sent chills racing down my spine. It was low, guttural, distorted beyond recognition, but it was undoubtedly a voice, and it was speaking directly to me. "Hello?" I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. The words seemed to hang in the air, swallowed by the vast emptiness of the night. The voice on the radio responded, a low chuckle that sent shivers down my spine. The voice on the CB radio echoed in the confined space of the truck cab, each distorted syllable a hammer blow to my sanity. My finger hovered over the transmit button, a desperate urge to respond, to demand answers, warring with the primal fear that froze my throat. Who was this? What did it want? The questions swirled in my mind, a chaotic storm mirroring the turmoil that had gripped my heart. The voice chuckled again, a dry, rasping sound that seemed to suck the very air from my lungs. "Don't you recognize my voice?" It rasped, a hint of amusement lacing its tone. "We've met before." I stared at the radio, my breath catching in my throat. The voice. It was vaguely familiar, like a half-remembered nightmare, a whisper from the darkest recesses of my memory. The voice on the CB continued, its words a chilling litany that sent shivers down my spine. It spoke of shadows and secrets, of a darkness that clung to me, a darkness I could never outrun. Panic surged through me, a tidal wave of fear that threatened to drown reason. My foot slammed down on the accelerator, the engine roaring in protest as I pushed the truck to its limits. The speedometer needle climbed, a blur of white against the black, but it wasn't fast enough. No amount of speed could outrun the terror that clung to me like a phantom. The voice on the CB seemed to relish my fear, its words growing clearer, more menacing with each passing mile. The world outside the truck had become a surreal dreamscape, the boundaries between reality and nightmare blurring with each passing mile. The familiar sights and sounds of the open road were now distorted, tainted by the unseen presence that pursued me. The headlights, usually beacons of safety in the darkness, now cast long, grotesque shadows that danced and writhed at the edge of my vision. The wind howled like a banshee, its mournful cries blending with the static on the CB radio to create a cacophony of sound that grated on my nerves. My grip on the steering wheel tightened, knuckles white with exertion. My eyes darted back and forth between the road ahead and the rearview mirror, searching for any sign of the phantom truck that haunted my every move. I was caught in a macabre game of cat and mouse, the hunter and the hunted, but I couldn't see my pursuer, couldn't shake the feeling that I was being herded, driven towards some unknown fate. Just when I thought I could take no more, when the darkness threatened to consume me entirely, a faint glimmer of light appeared on the horizon. It was a beacon of hope in the desolate landscape, a promise of salvation from the nightmare that had ensnared me. A diner, a small roadside diner, its neon sign a splash of color against the black canvas of the night. It was a sight I had witnessed countless times in my years on the road, a familiar symbol of comfort and human connection. But never had it held such allure, such promise of safety. My foot eased off the accelerator, the engine sighing in relief as I slowed the truck. For the first time since the voice on the CB had shattered the silence, a flicker of hope ignited within me. Maybe, just maybe I could find refuge there, a temporary respite from the terror that stalked me. I pulled off the highway, the tires crunching on the gravel shoulder, and brought the truck to a stop. The engine ticked softly, the only sound in the sudden stillness. The diner beckoned, its warm light a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness that surrounded me. I stepped out of the truck, the cold night air hitting me like a physical blow. The diner's neon sign buzzed faintly, casting an ethereal glow on the deserted parking lot. My legs felt shaky, unsure beneath me, as if the nightmare I had just escaped was still clinging to my heels. The diner's windows glowed with a warm, inviting light, a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to move, each step a victory against the unseen force. The smell of coffee and fried onions hit me as I pushed open the diner door, a wave that did little to quell the unease that gnawed at my gut. The diner was nearly deserted. A lone waitress wiped down the counter with a rag. She looked up as I entered, her eyes widening slightly. "Just you?" she asked, her voice flat. I nodded, unable to speak, the events of the past hour still swirling in my mind. I slid into a booth by the window, my back to the wall, my eyes scanning the diner's dimly lit interior. It was a scene I had witnessed countless times before, a familiar tableau of late-night solitude. Yet tonight, it felt different, charged with an underlying tension. The waitress ambled over, her pen tapping impatiently. "Coffee?" she asked. "Black," I croaked, my voice raspy. As she turned to fetch my coffee, a figure stepped through the diner door. A shiver ran down my spine as I recognized the worn leather jacket, the faded trucker cap. The other trucker. He moved with confidence, his gaze sweeping over the diner before settling on me. A slow smile spread across his face, and in that instant, the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. It was the same smile I had seen in the reflection of my rearview mirror, a smile that spoke of secrets and shadows. He headed towards me, his boots thudding against the linoleum floor. I sat frozen in place, my heart pounding in my chest. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear into the night. But my voice failed me, my body refusing to obey the commands of my terrified mind. He sat across from me, a specter in a worn leather jacket, his smile a gash in the dim light of the diner. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The words he'd spoken through the CB now hung in the air between us, tangible and terrifying. He leaned in, his smile widening, and for a moment I saw it, a flicker of something cold and inhuman behind his eyes. I had stumbled into something ancient, something evil. He never spoke another word, leaving me in the cold embrace of the night, my coffee growing cold, the echo of his laughter still ringing in my ears. The road, once my sanctuary, was forever tainted by that encounter, a constant reminder that some things are best left undisturbed. If this story sent shivers down your spine as it did mine, please hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more horror confessions. Your support fuels my journey into the darkest corners of forgotten history.